Time again. Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Daily S&M with Rory Sauter and Greg Merck. Happy 2024, our first episode of the year. A lot to address, a lot to establish, headline after headline. Where do we even start, Merck? I mean, 2023 was quite the year. 2024 is here. There's going to be a lot happening this year.
A lot happening.
Over
4 billion people will face elections this year on the planet. This is what they say. They're talking about one of the biggest elections in the history of really the global history, with elections in India, obviously here in the United States, going to have a huge impact on the years to come, especially here in the United States. Is it going to be Democrat? Is it going to be a Republican? And really, 180 degrees out is the shift of these two parties. And we're talking about two radically, drastically different directions, not only that this country will go on, but that the world will go on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I have to ask you, how was your holiday season?
Holiday season was great. As always, family up in, I always go home to upstate New York, got a little skiing in. So it was good. It was a good time.
Nice, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. And, let's recap 2023 a little bit. It was quite the year. What do you think were the biggest highlights? What do you think?
Well, I think that
the most. What do you think things to go ahead?
Well, let's go back to late 22 in the elections when we thought things would be a lot different than they were. And we saw with the slim margins. I expected 2023 to be, a huge majority of Republicans in Washington. But I think that what I learned in 2023 is that as long as the government keeps pouring money on the fire is going to continue to rage, and the American people aren't going to feel the pain. But eventually that money is going to run out. Eventually they're not going to be able to throw more money on the fire. And you've compounded this issue with the one of the fastest rates in Federal Reserve overnight short-term interest rates, one of the fastest rise in history, going from 0 to 0.25% to 5.25% to 5.5%, and in just a matter of 16 months. The markets couldn't help it or couldn't handle it, and the American people are now starting to feel that pain. So I think 2023 really kind of defied my expectations of what I thought was going to happen in 2022. But that's only because, you can never underestimate the ability of the federal government, the Federal Reserve, to mask the problems and make people feel like life is good and everything is fine. The economy is good, soft landing. They pull out all the stops, but the American people pretty soon are going to see through the facade. And, I don't know if that happens in 2024. I fully expect more of the same, given this is election year. I think that Jerome Powell knows that if Trump's elected, his job's over. So I think he's going to do everything he can to really kind of help this administration. That's just my personal opinion. So, I don't know if they're going to stave off another year of this, what I think is an imminent depression, put it off another year or not. But really, it's becoming almost impossible. Just like predicting the markets, decades ago, you could look at the fundamentals and kind of predict the markets and where they're going. But these days, it's almost impossible to make any predictions because so many things will come up under a rock and really change what everybody's thinking.
Yeah, the uncertainty and just what's to come. It's never been like this before. It's pretty crazy. We know it's going to happen. We know it's going to come down hard. It's just a matter of time, and we just don't know that exact date. And I think just how unpredictable this whole scenario is the most frightening part.
Yeah, unpredictable.
Because it's going to come out of left field. Like, there's not going to be many warning signs. There's not going to be many indicators. It's just going to go, bam.
Well, I think the problem is this has been a train wreck, but very, very slow.
There already are indicators, but you know what I mean. One day
it's going to happen. Right. Normally train wrecks happen and they just are immediate, instantaneous. This is a slow motion train wreck. And the problem with slow motion train wrecks is you kind of get comfortable. You know it's a train wreck, but hey, it hasn't crashed yet. It's like that old proverbial boiling the frog to death. As you incrementally increase the temperature, he doesn't really sense the change until it's too late. And I think that's the US economy. It's changing so incrementally. Little by little, people are just getting, they just get used to it a little bit. And as we get closer and closer to the abyss, we're not realizing the danger that we're in, not only as a country, but individuals in our household, corporate America, and the global situation as well. It's just really, we've never seen this kind of slow motion train wreck. We've never seen it happen this slow, this progressively, but it's happening. And, I do think that when it finally hits, it's going to be that much more difficult to clean up the mess because the bubble's getting bigger and bigger. And the bigger a bubble gets, the bigger the mess when it pops.
And we're seeing a lot of, things at all-time highs, things that are breaking records in the worst type of ways, things that were worse than the 1930s. I mean, just the numbers that are coming out.
Yeah, and look, people seem to they gauge this whole U.S. economy by the stock market. Stock market's doing great, so the economy's doing great. That's just smoke and mirrors. I mean, half of America is not in the stock market. And many millions have exposures through their 401s, but they look at the S&P 500 and the Dow and the NASDAQ, and that looks great. Sure, but it looks great not for reasons that are beneficial to the American consumer, but for reasons that are great for corporate America. If you're anticipating lower interest rates, I mean, look, we had 10 years of zero interest rates. Of course, that was great for corporate America, and that helps them now if they're going to start pulling back and turning the interest rates down. But the average American has already been paying 20, 30, 40% more for goods today than he did 4 years ago. So interest rates, no interest rates, stock market record levels or not, the American people can't afford to live month to month.
Yeah, and I was referring to just the economical numbers that were breaking records, like in the worst ways, like the record low
labor participation.
Yes, and then we've got banks and the market doing things that basically have never been done before in desperation mode. All of this extra borrowing, all these bankruptcies, all these, foreclosures. I mean, we can go on and on. If you look at, just the wages is not meeting the levels of living. I mean, not even close. I mean, that's
it's not keeping up with inflation.
Rising like crazy. I mean, and there's so many things I can point out, and I want to keep going, but your thoughts?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I listen to people like Cramer, who talks about claiming victory. Hey, the Fed has achieved the soft landing. That is so. Not only is it premature, but absolutely irresponsible. And these clowns are on television and they want to make a name for themselves and make these outrages. This is no way can you even come close to saying this is a soft landing. It's not time yet. We cannot yet make that determination. Not only that, but I believe that there's not going to be any soft landing. But soft landing in terms of what? I mean, labor participation and working age people, 83%. That's abysmal. You're talking about more people with second and third jobs than ever before in America. We're talking about the percent of income required to own a home at all-time highs. And soft landing for whom? For you in corporate America, and people are making $1 million a year or three. I don't know what Cramer makes. Whatever he makes, I'm sure it's 99% too high. So a soft landing for who? Not for the American people. These people don't speak for the American people. You go out on the streets, you ask anybody if life is good for them, if this is considered a soft landing. How about the last 4 years? It's been soft for no one. It's been a crash landing, a long rolling crash. It's like one of those Hollywood crashes, when the car flips over and it keeps flipping and flipping and flipping. If it's just like for in the comedies, the comedy crashes. It's like an 11-minute car crash, right? That's the American economy. It's a Hollywood comedy crash scene. It just keeps going on and on and on. And, I talk to a lot of friends, a lot of people out there, and I have them in all economic levels. Some that are just barely getting by, and some that are very wealthy. And I'll tell you, even my wealthy friends are extraordinarily pessimistic given the interest, what the interest rates are. So, I don't know who these people are talking about. I think, a lot of it's hype. These people, they run these funds, and whether it's hedge funds, these investment funds. And of course they want to talk about everything's rosy and it's going to be great and a banner year, the S&P, because their life depends on it. People invest more when the market keeps going up, and they make more. The last thing they want to be is, a doom and gloomer and say how things are going to be horrible, because then what are people going to do? They're going to sell. They're going to get out of the stock market. They're going to go to, alternate investments. Maybe they're going to go into commodities. Maybe they're going to go to non-US dollar assets. Maybe they're going to invest overseas. Maybe they're just going to stick their money in money markets, which has seen trillions of dollars in inflows, or hundreds of billions for sure. I think in the last month, over $100 billion taken out of the banks.
Right here, I was actually just going to mention that money market funds saw an inflow of 123 billion over the last week, the most ever for the first week of the year.
Yeah. And so these people on television and the business networks, they don't want to talk about the reality.
Yeah, they're trying to lead people the wrong way. Like, there's so many people that are saying everything's fine. And I think a lot of those people are purposely doing this, obviously. And I think some are just ignorant. I think some just, have this wishful Fantasyland thinking.
Yeah, the word Pollyanna comes to mind. They're cheerful about everything.
Right. Like, they're so optimistic about everything. They don't want to be the realist type. They don't want to look at the negative downside that's about to come, because I understand. That mindset, though. I can understand how somebody doesn't want to see that stuff and wants to have the mindset that everything can just be great. But at the same time, I could never live that way. I have to look at the reality of things. I always have to look at what's the real picture. And
I think it's a responsible thing to do. Right. If you're walking around with, stage 4 cancer,
can't take it, man. It's mental torture for them. They just can't take it. They can't take the fact that things are not going to be great. Things are not going to be in their favor. Things are really going to go south.
Well, it's kind of part of that name it and claim it mentality, that idea that positive thinking has positive results. And look, there's a place for that. But, the reality is just because you're pessimistic doesn't mean you're without hope. Pessimism is a state of reality. Right. It's not a state of mind. If you're pessimistic, it should be rooted in reality. And the reality of this economy, the massive amounts of debt, the continuous overspending, that's a reality that you cannot ignore. And you can't be optimistic about that. Otherwise, you're irresponsible and dishonest.
And Greg, surprisingly, most of the people I talk to think everything's going to be fine. They don't think anything bad is going to happen. They think they think interest rates are going to come down and everything's going to go back to normal, and we're just going to live happily ever after. And the end.
Well, I don't know what most of my friends and the people that I talk to, not many of them have an outlook of the future, but in terms of the here and now, none of them are positive about the here and now. Some people may just, again, predictions in the future that are just flippant, that are not based or rooted in fundamentals and reality. They're just, you're just rolling that, just making predictions, and those have no value. But people can genuinely discern the here and now, and they can evaluate where they're at right now, and they do that honestly. And none of the people that I talk to, regardless of where they're at, are optimistic about the here and now. Life is very difficult for them economically. It's a struggle for pretty much every single person that I know and talk to. It's not easy street.
Right.
It's a struggle. And I don't know that many of them, if they're honest with themselves, think that it's going to get easier. Most of them, would say it's not going to get easier. That's going to get even more difficult, especially if Democrats maintain control.
Crazy stuff. It says also right here, the United States' second largest pension fund may borrow more than $30 billion to help it maintain liquidity without having to sell assets at fire sale prices.
Well, and those assets, you know what those assets are? Those assets are U.S. Treasuries.
Yeah.
And they've plummeted, 30-40% in value. Because remember, the yield is inversely related to the price of a bond. So when it's a very low yield, the price of the bond is very high. You pay high dollars. So they bought these bonds and these treasuries when the yields were low, when interest rates were zero, and on the 10-year, 1%, 2%. So they have these very low yielding bonds, which means they cost them a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So now if they were to sell them where the yields are 4% on a 10-year, 5% on a short term, if they were to sell them, they're going to get 40% less, 30% less than they paid for them. So they can't liquidate them. If they want the money and they need to raise the cash, they can't do it by liquidating their assets, or they're going to lose 10, 20, 30%. The same thing banks. I mean, whether it's pension funds or banks, they are all in the same predicament. When the Federal Reserve, that's why I say the rapid pace in which the Federal Reserve increased rates from 0 to a quarter to 5.25 to 5.5 was devastating to pension funds and to banks, because all of those assets that they've been holding for 10 years, 15 years, they've been buying them over the years and paying a very high premium for them because the interest rates were so low. Now these things are worth much, much less, and they can't sell them. They have to hold them. And what happens when they need to raise cash? These banks, they need money. People are taking just $123 billion in a week. That means they're taking money out of the bank. Now, the bank have these reserves. The bank can't lend money unless they have so much money in the bank. So what we see is they're strapped for cash. People are pulling their money out, and they don't have the money to give them. I think this is going to accelerate in March. And when that 12 months, the lending program starts to expire and they need to pay it back, they're going to have to extend that, and it's going to accelerate. It's going to be a terrible mess. You start getting into the second quarter of 24, and it's going to be a terrible mess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it says right here, U.S. stock short sellers lost a combined $195 billion with a B last year. Does that surprise you?
No.
That's a shit ton. Good Lord, man. Complete wipeout, my friend. Complete wipeout. Jesus. You have any thoughts on that? All these short sellers?
No, because they got wiped out because, like I said, you're trying to make these predictions, and you can never underestimate the ability of the government to bail everybody out and to do things. So, they're expecting things to go down, and then you have this massive rally due to just the notion that the Federal Reserve is going to cut interest rates. They haven't cut them yet. Now, I mean, I listen to Jerome Powell's speeches. Yeah, he talks about, but I don't see any guarantees of rate cuts in there, although he probably will. If he doesn't, he's going to just really collapse. I mean, if he raises interest rates, you will see a massive, massive destruction. And there are going to be serious bloodbath in the stock market. But just the suggestion that he's going to create these huge rallies, and that's what feels. So you got these short sellers that are thinking, this isn't going to work. These stocks are going to go down. And then they get busted and they get squeezed. Although if they can hold on, I'll tell you, hold those shorts into 2024, because I think they're going to realize that they were right. Right.
And then this is how crazy things are with the dollar. The purchasing power of the dollar since 1930. In 1930, it was $1. In 1930, it was $1. 1960, it was 0.4. 1990, 0.1. 2023, 0.04.
Yeah. So we've lost 94%.
Yes,
is what they're saying.
94%.
But we've lost the majority of that. Realistically, from 1971 on, when Nixon took us off the gold standard. That's when we lost the majority of our the dollar's purchasing power. And when we turned, it was just kind of this progression, because in the 40s, when we decided to make the dollar the reserve currency of the world, and that was the beginning of the end of the U.S. dollar. It was great for the world, but it was not good for Americans, and that started the decline. But we at least were able to hold things together with a gold standard. Because if nothing else, all those dollars in the world would be, or supposedly were, backed by gold. And once you got off that standard, then you just, then they're just kind of worthless. And you've had to print so many dollars for the world that it's really created this massive, massive amount of inflation. And the reason why what they're talking about is inflation. The buying power of the dollar decreasing 94% is rooted in inflation. The dollar just doesn't buy a dollar's worth of stuff. And what it's saying is it would take $94 to buy, or, today, what $1 bought, back in 1930. But, it's not a whole lot better. Even fast forward to 1971 today, it's still, a massive inflation of the dollar and decrease in its value. So, when you got off the gold standard, that was really the end of the dollars for the American people, the power, the buying power of the dollar.
Yeah, that was a big mistake. And it's talked about a lot, how that was a recipe for disaster. And what
you're going to liken it to Vegas. Let's say the Bellagio, every casino in Vegas, the Bellagio has all this money in the basement, and they give out all of these, they can't have more money in the basement than they have chips out there, right? Supposedly, because what if everybody cashes in the chips? So the amount of chips out there never can exceed the amount of dollars that are in the basement of the Bellagio. But let's say Bellagio decides that with all the other casinos, everybody's going to use Bellagio, what do you call it? Not coins. The gambling things that they use in Vegas, chips. Yeah. So everybody's going to use Bellagio chips. Well, they would have to have all the reserve, the cash in the basement. They would have to increase it, because they can't just make, 500 times the amount of chips out there and not have the cash in their basement. So they would have to increase that cash. And the problem with the United States, we did that, we had the gold, but eventually we got off the gold. Now there's nothing in the basement. So, Vegas has got all of these chips rolling out, all Bellagio. So what happens when the MGM comes to the Bellagio to cash in their chips? Hey, here's all my chips. Give me my money. Well, we don't have the money. I'll tell you what, we'll give you some more chips. How about I don't want chips. I want the money. It's the same thing with dollars and gold. We got all this gold all over the world in these dollars all over the world in U.S. treasuries. What's going to happen when they want to cash it in? There's nothing there. I'll tell you what, we'll give you some more dollars. And that's what they're doing. Give you more dollars? What do I want these dollars? They're worthless. That's why they say, the only real money is gold and precious metals. That's money. The rest is just fiat currency. And the more people hold dollars, and that's U.S. citizens as well as the global community, the more they realize those dollars just aren't buying what they used to. And that's how governments get themselves out of trouble and out of debt, by inflating the dollar. I mean, you lend a dollar today, the federal government can lend a dollar today and buy all these goods with that dollar and pay it back in 30 years. And what is it going to get? What is it going to get you in 30 years? Nothing. So it's a lot better for the government to borrow the money today, pay it years later when it's worth, half of what it was when they borrowed it. And I'll tell you, countries are going to start waking up, and they are waking up to this reality. And eventually they're going to say, these U.S. treasuries, yeah, I'm guaranteed to get them, because I don't think the U.S. government is going to collapse and the economy is going to collapse. I'm guaranteed to get it, but they're not going to be worth anything. What's the point?
Yeah, no, I hear you. And it says right here, we were talking about the Great Depression earlier. According to Axios, America in 2023 has had the slowest population growth since the Great Depression.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's countries all over the world, white
crazy.
countries like all over Europe.
That definitely factors into the economy, no doubt about it. I mean,
it does, but it's in country. You're seeing this huge demographic shift.
Because
I mean, whether you're talking about Italy,
a lot of people can't afford it anymore.
Well, and not just that, but Italy, Germany, all throughout Europe, the indigenous populations are shrinking, which means there's a massive migration of foreigners, people from, poorer countries, And that is putting an enormous strain on the governments because, people are coming into America to build and to manufacture and to create. They're not. I'm sorry. Okay. Newsflash to the bleeding heart liberals that think America is a nation of immigrants. They're not coming here like they did in the 30s to be part of this dream and to help build this dream. They're coming here to get the free stuff. And I don't care what anybody says. That's not why they're coming, miles and miles and paying coyotes to carry them across the border. They're coming for free stuff because America is the land of idiots where we give everything away. And this is it's not good for the future of the U.S. economy. If they're coming here as engineers, as doctors, as entrepreneurs, as manufacturers and people, then you know what? Bring them in. We need it. We need them. But that's not what's coming here.
Right.
You look at the border, you look at people are flowing across the south. That's not what's coming here.
Right.
Sorry.
Speaking of what you just mentioned, there's a new stunning statistic. There has been zero increase in jobs for native-born workers in over 5 years since July of 2018.
Yeah, I saw a statistic. Yeah.
That's fucking terrible, dude.
We are dumbing down the country. That is for sure. Yeah.
Wow, more than 40% of U.S. personal income taxes in America are consumed just in interest on the federal debt, according to the Heritage Foundation. Wow. Did you hear what I just said?
Yeah.
Good Lord, man. Good Lord. These people, these motherfucking people, dude. They got some nerve.
Yeah.
How is that even sustainable?
It's not. It's not. And, whether you and I see the ultimate demise of the American economy, American exceptionalism, remains to be seen. And I won't say that we will. I won't say that we won't. But it's happening. And I have no doubt that my son is going to see it. He's 16. I have no doubt he's going to live through the demise of the American great economy.
Dude. Ugh.
I mean, I don't think it's going to happen in a crash overnight. Like I said, like we've talked about before, it's just slow train wreck. It's just going to, one day he's just going to wake up and realize that we just are not. I mean, you and I can do that. I certainly can do that right now. This is not the great America that when I grew up, in the 80s and 90s. This is nothing like that America.
Right.
And it just gets worse every decade. And I think eventually we'll just wake up and be very different. I mean, look at the boomers and the great generation, those who fought in World War II. I mean, this country looks nothing like it did when they were here. But we're still holding on to that biggest economy in the world. We're still holding on to the country that has more influence around the globe than any other single country. But look how we're losing that. I mean, China is wielding influence in the Middle East and in Africa and, certainly in China and hell, even here in America, where we have so many people compromised, so many companies that have been compromised because they have so much money invested in China. But eventually we wake up and we realize that maybe we're not even in second place. Maybe we're in third place. I mean, India rising. Maybe we have a hard time making the top 5.
And speaking of what you just mentioned, and we're talking about the economy and all of that, and just our culture and our society, what is to blame for just the new era, the new generation becoming more and more weaker and not making them like they used to?
Well, I think
we could obviously point out many different things, but what do you think is like the big thing?
Well, I look at, the Marxist influence in this country, which started in the 30s. Once America started to see no need for God, and I mean, we were a moral society, and a moral society has a moral lawgiver because you can't have morals without a moral lawgiver, and the moral lawgiver can't be man. Has to be some transcendent force, has to be God. Now, you can argue which God that is, but America was a religious, a spiritual nation, a Christian nation, and people believed in God. And the attack was on the foundational principles that America was this Christian nation. And once you really eroded the foundation, which is a belief in a God and a transcendent moral lawgiver, then you opened up the floodgates for everything else in just a vacuum. And, that's what the cultural Marxists knew they had really failed in World War I, that they knew they had to accomplish to bring in their new world order. Because, they thought before their attack on Christianity that people would not fight for their governments, that French wouldn't fight against Germans, and they would lay their arms down, and they would just say tell the man to go to hell. And yet people did. They had this sense of nationalism in protecting their home country, and they found that was rooted in their belief in God. Mm-hmm. And so they learned that if we want to have this new world order to usher in this Marxist utopia, we have to attack that one force that unites people in a nation. And by getting rid of God and a moral lawgiver, they were able to usher in, and playing the long game, this idea that it is man's rule. Man is the moral arbiter. And once you did that, you saw the systematic breakdown of every institution, the institution of the family, the institution of marriage, educational institutions, arts, academia, the media, all of them falling one by one like dominoes, because there was really no supreme moral lawgiver. I think that really ultimately, in the macro sense, was led to the decline of this country. And once you have all that, everything else is just a symptom of people that really have no faith. I always say this: the social trinity for America has always been freedom, virtue, and faith. Freedom requires virtue, and virtue emanates from our faith, and you need to be free to practice that faith. So it is the essential elements and tenets of a strong society, the social trinity of freedom, virtue, and faith. And realistically, all three have been under attack for the last 50 years.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. We were talking about numbers. We were talking about statistics. The median home price in the U.S. at this moment is $392,000. A U.S. household needs to earn $115,000 to afford the median home. The median U.S. household income is only $74,000. So that's a problem. We were talking about the wages not meeting the standard of living, and long term, this is not sustainable. I mean, this is bad news bears, man. Bad news bears.
No, affordability is no longer. It's out of reach for so many people, and that's, you're just talking about what it takes to make. Now you take the amount of credit card debt, take the amount of student loan debt. You're running out of money for people to be able to buy a home. So that's why a home is out of reach. You can say, well, you still got enough money. I mean, it only takes 38% of your 38% of your income to afford a house. Yeah, but you don't have 38% left. If you're paying your student loans, if you're paying your credit card debt, your car loans, and all these things that people are sad with, you don't have the money not to buy a new home today with interest rates at 6%, 6.5%. With a homeowner's insurance skyrocketing, property taxes skyrocketing because the price of the houses have skyrocketed. So, of course, your property tax is going to go up. It's not affordable. I mean, 4 years ago, what was a $1,200 all-in mortgage payment is like close to $3,000.
It's absolute madness. Are we going to see more homeless people than ever before? I mean, it's already through the roof. What do you think the crash will look like in that area?
Well, in terms of homelessness,
worse than 2008 in regards to people losing their homes. All of it.
Right? Well, I think it's going to be take a while before it goes into the residential. But I'll tell you this: the commercial market, the office space, is going to see, I think, a huge crash.
Right.
I think it's going to be some. There are companies today already turning the keys in to the banks for office space. And I'm talking 20, 30-story buildings.
Oh, yeah. And Greg, we're seeing every day, at least I am on social media, those type of buildings you're referring to are selling for like a fraction of what they were purchased for. This is how bad things are. People are so desperate to get rid of them because they know what's about to come. People in this sector, they see.
Yeah, and you say what you have is a huge percentage of what they call Class B and Class C. These are your older buildings. You know, the
Right.
lower ceiling types. Nobody going to want those. It's going to
No.
be hard enough to keep people in the Class A, the top real estate, the
Right.
best real estate. It's going to be hard enough to keep people in there because, frankly, this COVID. The post-COVID world is here to stay, where people are working from at home. We're 30-40%. That down in the need for office space. Sometimes people aren't even coming to work on Fridays, so they don't need the office space. So even the Class A, the best real estate, it's going to be hard enough to keep those places rented and occupied. But the rest of it, forget about it. And then there's always a question of repurposing. And what I've said, that's just not just an easy fix, repurpose and change it, because there's plumbing issues, there's electrical issues. Oh, there's zoning issues. Got to get the zoning. And so if you're talking about a $100 million building that sells for $20 million, you walk away. Maybe you can do that. But at that point, it just becomes cheaper to just wipe the whole building out, especially if it's a Class B, Class C building. Why would you repurpose that? You just tear it down and build a new one. And if you want to build a new residential, but the idea that we could just repurpose it, I mean, that's way easier said than done, and sometimes impossible and cost prohibitive.
And we know that the printing of endless money is one of the main reasons this is all happening. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I think that something needs to be put forth, whether it's legislation or whatever, that prohibits this, and these politicians and from passing this stuff, because it's creating misery and havoc in our country, and it never ends. Like, they don't stop. There has to be a time where we just say enough. But go ahead.
Well, they never do. The last surplus we had was, in a budget, was in the Clinton era. But it's a question of budgets and passing these budgets, and they continue.
Look at how much damage a small group of people can do to the entire country.
Well, and you know what? There's a big group of them, because Republicans are, as feckless Republicans could come up with a pre-COVID budget plan. You just look at what the amount of money that we're spending, the trillions more than we're taking, and nobody can explain, because there is no explanation, the purpose, the reason why we're spending as much today as we did in COVID. I mean, why did we increase the budget $2-3 trillion because of COVID stimulus? Why are we still spending the same? Why are we stimulating? I mean, I get it, even though it was a horrible idea when COVID to print these trillions of dollars. I get it, stupid. It was terrible. Well, why didn't you stop it after COVID ended? But they're continuing to have the same baseline budget. It's unbelievable. And nobody will explain why, because there is no explanation.
I mean, we know that COVID coming back is about power and control. It's about locking people down. An election is right around the corner. I don't think we've ever used the excuse, though, that I'm about to say. And I'm wondering if this is a reason for them to keep printing money, saying, using COVID, especially if there's another scenario where all hell breaks loose, to say we need more stimulus checks. We need to give people more money. Let's raise the debt even more. What do you think?
Well, I mean, that's not even necessary. They just do it. I mean, they have these budget increases every year, 3, 4, 5%. They can't even fight to get it down to like 1% increase instead of a 5. They don't need a catastrophe. I mean, look, the catastrophe was just the gravy. I mean, you talk about a massive, grotesque, egregious expansion of the federal government. The catastrophe, the black swan, the COVID thing was just, but it's not like we've ever needed that. I mean, look what we've been doing for 25 years. I mean, look at the stupid, ridiculous spending. I mean, you'll see all of the pork, the garbage, the nonsense, the corruption. These people should be in jail when you look at what they're using taxpayer dollars for. There's no reason for it, but they don't need a black swan event to do that. I mean, they've been doing it for decades. Right. Decades. And they're doing it now with no COVID. I mean, we ran a $2.1 trillion, which really, if you look at the federal budget or the federal debt and how it grew $4 trillion, we really spent $4 trillion more than we had, not $2.1 trillion. And there was no black swan event. They don't need it. Oh, sure. They like it. They love it because it gives them cover.
Right.
And then it kind of brings everyone. I mean, just look at the Trump administration. Yeah, I mean, Republicans, there's Trump. Hey, if you don't vote as your Republican senator, you're going to lose your $1,400 check. I mean, you had both sides clamoring for, hey, you got to do this or you're not going to get your government check. It's just disgusting, disgusting. And it's bipartisanship. It's bipartisanship, cronyism. It keeps them in power. They all want to stay in power. It was a sickening, sickening time in American history. Perhaps one of the most sickest, disgusting in history, certainly in my opinion, that we were giving these trillions of dollars away just like that. You locked the country down. You gave trillions of dollars in checks to individuals and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars to companies to keep their doors closed, to pay employees that weren't working. This is just boggles the mind, the stupidity. And that was bipartisan stupidity.
Right.
And it was unnecessary.
The way Trump handled this was awful. This was one of Trump's biggest failures. He could have pulled the plug. He could have said no, but he went along with it. And, he's one of the main reasons we're in this mess. I'm not going to blame everything on him, but if he would have stopped this, if he would have pulled the plug, if he would have said enough, and he would have said,
anybody that doesn't think that Trump caused massive inflation, the start of it, is just a fool. Look, I'm a Trump supporter. I vote for Trump. I will vote for Trump and support him now. But
what if he comes
giving $1,400 checks?
What if he comes in and does the same shit with inflation?
I don't think that's going to happen. But
spending.
I'm looking. If he does, it doesn't matter to me because the Biden administration or Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom will utterly decimate.
I know, but you don't think he's going to spend. You don't think he's going to.
It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter if he does or not.
Do you think he learned his lesson with spending?
You know what? The fact is, I don't care if he did. I could say yes. It doesn't matter because I know the other side is an infinite number worse.
But infinitely worse. I know it doesn't matter. I'm asking you. Do you think he learned his lesson?
I think yeah. Look, he doesn't have to get reelected. I think that's a huge part. So yeah, I don't think he's going to do things. Look, Trump did things because he likes to win. He was up for re-election. He needed to win. I got to win. And I think it was a huge mistake. I think he should have said, you know what? If I don't win, doesn't matter. I'm going to save the country. That's my opinion. But I don't believe he doesn't need to get reelected. Right. So, yeah, I do think he's going to do things very differently. But the fact is, it doesn't matter because the Democrats are putting America on the fast track to obliteration. And it won't just be a soft obliteration, a painless, have some morphine and die peacefully. It's going to be an agonizing death. So if Trump is not elected, if the Democrats are allowed to stay in power, the good for evil swap. The left wants to say Trump's the end of democracy. Let me tell you something. The Democrat Party is the end of this country as we know it. And that's just absolutely going to be the reality. But look, anybody who doesn't think, though, that Trump had a huge part of the responsibility in inflation just doesn't understand inflation.
Right.
All those programs and paying companies to stay closed. And hey, look, he was the president when you got a unemployment check plus 600. That was his administration. And then, it did a lot. They cut it down to 400 and then 300. So you got your unemployment check plus. I mean, these people were making more money working and doing nothing, sitting at home, buying stuff on Amazon and eBay than they ever worked full time.
Bums.
So just stupid, an abject failure in how he handled the economy through COVID. I'm sorry. It was an utter failure.
No, I hear you. And I do want to mention Iowa is coming up and so is New Hampshire. What should we expect?
Look, I mean, Nikki Haley is going to get, I think, her ass handed to her. I don't care what people think. And I don't think she's going to, maybe she'll do okay in New Hampshire, but Trump's going to win it. And then Trump's going to win it in South Carolina. And I mean, look, these people are in it now, I guess, just because they can't drop out before Iowa, at least, and maybe New Hampshire. But it's over. I mean, the fat lady's singing, and it's all over for all of them. It's just one of those things. It's time to unite behind Donald Trump. Look, it's a terrible situation because the deep state wants to destroy Trump. But, this is bigger than Donald Trump. We can't allow them to do that. And I really believe that. And, whether Trump's doing it for me, he's doing it for himself. I get it, but it doesn't matter because they are doing it to me. And when I look at the deep state and what they're doing to Trump, they're not just doing it to Trump. They're doing it to me. They're doing it to 60, 70 plus million Americans. They're doing it to us. And they're doing it to usher in their Marxist view of the world in the country. So we can't let it happen. As much as there are things with Trump that maybe I would disagree with, the vast majority of it I agree with his with where his heart is in terms of this country and what's right for this country. And these people, they hate us as much as they hate Trump. Make no mistake, they hate us as much as they hate Trump, and I believe that.
What if Trump selects Nikki Haley for his VP?
I just don't see that happening.
What if he does?
I don't think it helps.
Do you think that's the ultimate betrayal if he does?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Not to his 30% base because, but
for somebody like you and me, I mean, you would be very upset, correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't stop me from voting for him though.
But you would probably it wouldn't sit well with you. You would have a hard time.
No, but and I could say that. Well, what if he put I don't know, Joe Manchin on the ticket?
Well, I mean,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he doesn't.
I'm not a Manchin. I mean, he's got some moderate ideas, but he's more left.
Right, but I'm saying I wouldn't be. Of course, I could pick a dozen, 1,000, 1,000,000 people that Trump would pick that I wouldn't be happy with. I just don't think he's going to do that. I personally think if he goes with a woman, he's going to go with Kristi Noem, and I'd be very happy with that. And I think that's what he's going to go with. Hell, I'd be happy if he went with DeSantis.
Would you be surprised if he selects Bobby Kennedy?
Yeah, I would be surprised. I don't see that happening because I don't see Kennedy wanting to do that.
Yeah. What about Ramaswamy, your buddy?
Look, I wouldn't be totally. I think that Ramaswamy, he hasn't done his time. You know what I mean? I think it's very dangerous to put people that are not ready, maturity wise.
Yeah.
They don't have the emotional maturity. They don't have the kind of pressure that Washington D.C. and being a leader of the world. Yeah, look, he could say what he wants because look, there's pressure, and I've always said that the most important role as commander-in-chief is his role, or as president is his role as commander-in-chief. And I think Ramaswamy is wholesalely incapable of serving as a commander-in-chief at this point in his life.
Go ahead.
No, you may have to call. You may have to send men and women to fight a war. And how can you do that if you yourself were never willing to do it? And I have a real problem with Ramaswamy. He's certainly not ready to be.
Same thing about Donald Trump.
I see that, but you know what?
Excuse not to go to war.
Yeah, but this is a guy who was
any excuse. They weren't even valid excuses.
Yeah, but this is the
You even laughed about the idea of.
Yeah, but this is the 1960s. Very different than 9/11. I mean, anybody and their mother in 9/11 should have wanted to go over there and kill the Taliban and kill Al Qaeda. Anybody. Any young man of age, military age, should have wanted to just line me up, send me over there. I want to be the front line. I want to kill the first Taliban that I see, the first Al Qaeda.
Is that what inspired you?
No, I was in the military long before that.
Yeah, you got in the 90s. Yeah, I forgot about that. You were already in.
So, but you know what? When it happened, I was ready, man. I was like Dracula with the fangs coming out. I mean, I was ready to bite. It was exciting. Yeah. I remember we were under attack. I called my friend. We were waiting for a flight I was in the B-1 squadron. Right. And we were like, we're going to war. I mean, it was like, yeah, we're finally going to go put all of this experience and this training in real life. So yeah, there was excitement, and I can't imagine being, 18, 19, 20, 25, coming under attack like that, not saying, I don't care what I'm doing here. I'm going to fight. It's in my life anyway. I felt I could be anything. I could be a lawyer, a doctor, a businessman. I could be anything I want. But there's only one time in my life where I have the opportunity to serve my country. And that's why I chose to serve. And when I look at somebody like Ramaswamy and all that was going on, and a lot of these politicians that are young, maybe in their 30s, but I mean, what were you thinking when we got attacked? And what did that do to you?
And speaking of war, Taiwan and China, it's getting more and more real. It's getting more and more heated. It looks as if China is going to be making a move here any day now, according to numerous reports. Mark, what are your thoughts? What should we expect?
Well, I mean, I don't have any expectations of China. I do know that it's again, it's like one of those things that's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. I do think there are a couple of prerequisites, and I've all said that. Number one was to protect themselves from any kind of U.S. dollar sanctions, and I think they have been doing that. And maybe they're done. Maybe they've completed it. But I think that was first and foremost prerequisite. And they've got workarounds. I think though that they have work. There's work to be done for them. Their economy is struggling now. That could be favorable to war or unfavorable to war because their struggling economy. I mean, that could push them into wanting to take over Taiwan with military force rather than peacefully because they're seeking to kind of a bailout for their own struggling economy. I don't think though the going to take Taiwan helps them on the world stage because economically it's going to come at a price. So I think there are still a lot of prerequisites that Taiwan needs to, or that Beijing needs to work out, that Xi Jinping needs to work out, but all centered in the ability for their economy to function. And that really preeminent in that is getting off the dollar, and they're doing that. I just don't know how ready they are to go take Taiwan by force. I think that's a big mistake for them now. But then again, Biden is so pathetic and weak. What would he do? What would Biden? So Xi Jinping could be looking like what's Biden going to do? He's got a war in Ukraine. He's got a war in Israel. What possibly can he do?
Right.
He's going to send warships to Taiwan. I don't know. I'm not sure I see that happening. This president is probably the most incompetent commander in chief we've had in the history of this country. So,
and we know that the semiconductor industry is dominating the world. And if China gets their hands on Taiwan, the universe is going to look a whole lot different. China's going to have the ultimate power and the ultimate authority because 90% of these chips, from what I understand, come from Taiwan. And so just imagine how much dick sucking all these other countries are going to have to do to China and play hardball when this is all said and done. This is why I've said numerous times that it is justifiable that the United States backs Taiwan for many reasons. Obviously, for the reason of these chips, but also Taiwan has always been our strong ally. They've always been our partner. They've never done us wrong. They're loyal as can be.
Well, and that's why I say that and
they're good for business. They're very good for business. Think about how much shit is made in Taiwan. Think about how much trade we do with them. And I can't think of any report where they've ever tried to fuck us. They've always been fair and transparent. China's the one we have to worry about. But go ahead.
Well, of course, because Taiwan wants our protection and our help.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So of course they're going to be our ally. But see, that's why China may be hedging their bets. If they take Taiwan, they can help their struggling economy. Yeah. Look, you saw how they took Hong Kong. They took it without firing a shot. It just happened, and they basically just absorbed Hong Kong into China. And they would like to do the same with Taiwan. But I don't think Taiwan's a different animal than Hong Kong, and I don't think they're going to go down easy like that.
What do we think about your buddy SBF, your idol, the guy that you love so much, getting his charges dropped, man? Your buddy. I mean, I told you nothing.
Well, he got the federal charges dropped. He got the federal charges. Look, they had a lot of charges. The federal government was going to go after him and you know what? You're talking about possibly indicting.
It still shouldn't have happened.
No, I agree, but he's convicted. He's going to jail. He's convicted on all these counts. And it was just, what was the federal government going to get him on all these other charges? And I think that, expecting the federal government to indict themselves, because who knows how many people, think of the Democrats, and the vast majority of them are going to be Democrats. So, that Joe Biden or whomever, Barack Obama and all of the Democrats in the deep state and the Justice Department said, no, we can't let this happen. Let's just drop it. He's convicted. He's going to go to jail, or they're going to sentence him here in March. Let's just kind of let let this go, because I honestly don't think they wanted to. They wanted all of that discovery out there, and who did what, who got what money, and what favors did they give Sam Bankman-Fried. They don't want all that to come out, and it will come out in discovery.
I hear you, man.
I mean, look, the guy's a cowardly dirtbag anyway, and he's not going to go down without taking everybody else down. Imagine he goes to trial on these things. He's just going to spill the beans on everything, and then even make up stuff, I'm sure. So
think about how much influence he's had over all these politicians on both sides, and how these people,
mostly Democrats.
Yeah, but how these people can just be bought and played with. And I mean, we're talking about the people that are in the highest positions of power making our laws being compromised by a little fucking fat kid.
They've been compromised by K Street for decades. I mean, they've been compromised for decades.
No, I know.
All walks
that's
of
the
life.
Problem. That's the issue. I mean,
of course, that's the issue.
And then we talk about how are we going to fix Washington. I don't think there is a way to fix Washington. We talk about it. It's fun to talk about. It makes good conversation, but nothing ever gets done about it.
That's because you have to get to the grassroots. You're not going to fix Washington until you fix your own Main Street. That's where it starts. Your own district, your own communities, changing the people that you're sending to Washington, one district at a time. That changes Washington. It doesn't happen overnight. Look, we didn't get here overnight, so we're sure as hell not going to get out of it overnight.
And Patrick McHenry, that congressman, I believe he served on the finance committee. He's retiring. Says that Congress doesn't make enough money. They're making $174,000 a year. He thinks they should get a raise. We've heard this type of shit before, and from so many different politicians who are bitching. But look at all the insider trading info they get, and it's legal in many ways. At least, the way they go about it, they don't ever pay a price. Most of them, 99% of them, never pay a price. And think about all the different resources, all the lobbyists, all the ways they can make money and capitalize, and they're bitching about that salary. I mean, come on.
Well, anybody who's going to Washington,
his excuse was, we're not all rich. We don't all have a fortune. Well, 99% of you do, and that's enough. I mean, not.
Yeah, but here's the problem with
1%. There's maybe 1% of you who are good and don't live by enriching yourself. But I mean, 90. That's crazy. 99% though. Go ahead.
No, but here's the reality. Anybody who's complaining about congressmen not making enough money does not belong in Washington.
Right.
And that person to me is a rank, disgusting lowlife. If you're going to Washington because you want to make money and you want you're there for the wrong reasons. When here in this the House or the state of Florida, the state House representative makes around $29,000 a year. 29,000, that's nothing. 29,000.
Wait,
say that again? You don't really work that hard. It's not like you're in Tallahassee every day. I mean, I don't know. What do you got? 60, 120 days when you're in session. So you drive to Tallahassee and you got to get a hotel. And they give you, I think it's around 30,000 or 32,000 in per diem. So 50,000. Well, damn, if you want to be a state rep because you want a job and you want to make good money, then don't be a state rep. That's the wrong reason. It's interesting because when people run for county commissioner, versus a state rep and even state senator, you'll have 8, 9, 10 people running for one county commissioner seat. And you'll have sometimes only one person running for state rep. Maybe you get 2. Oh, on a crazy year, you might have 3 people running for state rep, but you'll have 10 running for. And why is that? Because the county commissioner pays $85,000 a year here in Escambia County, Sarah. So of course these people want to go and make the money. But you know what? The kind of people that will pick a job in politics based on what the money it makes are the kind of rank, disgusting people that don't belong there. They never should belong there, and the people should never send them there. So I'm only glad that this clown is on his way out. Because if you're complaining about money in Washington, then don't take the job. You're in the wrong business. You're in the wrong business.
So you're telling me a state representative in Florida only makes less than $30,000 a year?
Yeah, and he gets about $30,000 in per diem. So, and he uses that. I mean, when you go to, unless you've got friends in Tallahassee you stay with, but you go to Tallahassee, you're gonna stay in some kind of room. Maybe you'll get a whatever Airbnb, but you're going to use that money, and you are going to travel there. You do have to drive your car. I get it. So you're probably going to use most of that. So, but yeah, 29,000, that's what you get paid. But what the hell do you do? I mean, you're not. It's not a 365-day job.
But Greg, when you're in that position of power, think about all the access and all the resources you have, and it makes sense why even people making that as a salary in office are still becoming millionaires, because they can get all this other money from other places. And yeah, I mean,
well, I mean, it's a state rep. They're probably not millions. But here's the thing. You know, my friend who was
I've seen quite a few that are, man. Believe me.
Yeah, and not in Florida.
The same city council members become millionaires.
Yeah, but that's what I say though. But they're making more money. I mean, in county commissioners. But as a state rep,
no, they're not making most of their money on salary, Greg.
No, but yeah, my point is, the state reps don't go to Tallahassee to get a job. They already have jobs. Like the last state rep here was a great guy, good friend of mine. He owns a State Farm business. He owns a State Farm franchise. So he sells insurance. That's his life. That's his money. And he goes and serves his people. He goes to Tallahassee to serve his people. You know, the $29,000, like, okay, whatever. You pay me $29,000, that's fine. But I'm a State Farm franchisee. He owns a State Farm office. So, look, if you're going to freaking Tallahassee because you need a job, you can work at Walmart and make more than $29,000 a year. You know what I'm saying? So you hopefully are going there for the right reasons. And the right reason is not because I need a job, I need to make this money. Right. You know, that's just ridiculous. Don't go to Tallahassee because it doesn't pay.
Right. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. You hear about the shooting in Iowa the other day? What a crazy way to start off the year. You know, it seems normal these days. It seems like just another day. It just seems like we're so used to it. And that's sad. You know, that's tragic how it's just become this type of thing where it doesn't even surprise us anymore that people are just going nuts, getting out of control. And if I'm not mistaken, it was a trans, wasn't it?
Well, I haven't really seen a lot of reports on it, so more than likely that is why.
Jesus Christ, man. And they're already asking for gun control. Jesus, on this whole matter. Like, it doesn't end. It doesn't end. Yeah, kill. Wow. Good Lord. And then,
was it a transgender?
I gotta look. I think I saw something about that.
That would explain why I haven't really heard much about it.
Did you hear about this lawsuit? This federal judge is allowing a lawsuit against New York assault weapons ban to proceed. U.S. District Court Judge Kenneth Carras sided with plaintiffs on Thursday, allowing their lawsuit against New York's assault weapons ban to proceed. Plaintiff J. Mark Lane and James Sears contend that New York's ban on assault weapons, the assault weapons ban, violates their Second Amendment rights as incorporated against New York State by the 14th Amendment. Your thoughts on this, Greg?
Well, look, New York has been assaulting the assault weapon for years.
Yeah.
And look, it's all of these measures have always been not about a particular kind of weapon, but ultimately to really turn back the Second Amendment in general as a whole. So any attack on any specific weapon has always been designed in the grand scheme of things to get into finality, to reach finality. And the finality is to really get rid of the Second Amendment altogether. They don't believe people should own any kind of guns, ARs, handguns, shot, it doesn't matter. And that's really about, and if we don't push up against that, then they're going to have their way. You know, it's easier to stop the big ball from rolling than to stop it once it starts rolling. And if we don't start realizing that and putting up, firm opposition to all of these anti-gun right movements, then the ball is going to continue to roll and get faster and faster, and then it'll be impossible to stop.
No, I hear you. And it looks like here, from what I see, the shooter did identify with the LGBTQ group. So it's one of those. Oh, it was a transgender. Yep. Dylan Butler.
Well, funny. That's why it's not been on every single headline. Just like
Right.
the
Right.
tranny that shot up the Christian school. I mean,
Right.
but mum's the word. You don't hear about these people now. If it's a white nationalist, oh, it's everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, there's calls for violence. I mean, this is just a sick, sick world that we live in.
Yeah, dude, it's what a crazy time. Did you hear about the transgender candidate disqualified from Ohio House race for not using real name? Listen to this. A transgender individual running for a seat in the Ohio House of Representatives say he was disqualified from the race for not using the name on his birth certificate. Vanessa Joy, a biological male who identifies as female, was deemed ineligible to run for office under Ohio law, which requires prospective political candidates who have changed their names within the last 5 years to put their former names on their candidate petitions, according to a report by NBC News. The law exempts people who have changed their name due to marriage. Joy, who had been trying to run as a Democrat representing Ohio House District 50, said he was unaware of this law until his disqualification. Joy told NBC News that referring to transgender individuals as the name printed on their birth certificate is a safety concern for many. Quote unquote, it's a barrier to entry for many trans and gender non-comforting people, Joy said. Wow, interesting. What do we think about this?
Well, I look at follow the rules, tranny
Right.
Annie.
Right.
Just because you're transgender doesn't mean you get a pass. The rules are pretty straightforward.
I'm going to start using that from now on. Tranny Annie. I like that. That's good. National Rifle Association CEO Wayne Lapierre is stepping down after 47 years. Long career, man. Long career at the NRA.
Yeah. Yeah. I have mixed emotions about NRA.
Oh, you think you don't think they're
I don't think they're on that straight up. I think there are other organizations that do a more legitimate job, and NRA's, it's kind of like a money grabbing machine.
Yeah,
I'm glad we have it, but it's not the end all be all to protecting the Second Amendment.
They seem to be the most popular, the most influential.
Well, they are for sure.
The ones
because
that
they got the most money
by Republicans.
Because they've got the most money. It's this big, huge lobby group, and they've got massive numbers in membership and in cash money.
Right. That makes sense. Hearing to hold Hunter Biden in contempt of Congress set for January 10th. Now listen to this. So the hearing is the first step to hold Hunter accountable for refusing to appear for a subpoena deposition in December. If prosecuted and convicted for contempt of Congress, Hunter faces a punishment of up to $100,000 fine and imprisonment. $100,000 in fines and imprisonment. Crazy.
Hey, yeah, I want to go back to the Iowa shooting.
Yeah.
Because I'm reading the Times, the NBC News, and none of them identify him as a transgender. Just a 17-year-old student, shot a sixth grader and wounded fourth. So, but you see that is my point is even if he is
Dylan Butler. Hold on, I'm gonna look that up. Dylan Butler transgender. Let me see, because I thought Newsweek put that up. Dylan Butler transgender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I believe it, but most of these won't report it. Why don't they report? Because they don't want you to know. Because then they don't want you to start talking about, transgender. Is there something wrong with these drugs? Is it causing psychosis? What's wrong with these people? I mean, they don't want to talk about it.
Right. Yeah. And you know what they're really pushing is transgender porn. Like they want people to watch it. They want people to embrace it. They want, there's ads left and right.
What exactly is transgender porn? I mean, I don't even, what is that?
I couldn't tell you. But
I mean, he looks like a girl, but he's a boy. Is it chicks with dicks? What is it?
Something like that, I guess. I don't know.
I guess. Yeah. All right.
Interesting stuff.
Hey, there's a fetish for everybody out there.
Right. Hunter Biden, what do we make of this? Obviously, I don't think much is going to come of it. A lot of it's political theater. A lot of it's a distraction. I mean, we know that he's guilty as hell. But these hearings, Nothing ever comes of these. We've seen some of the most high prolific people, and I'm not even convinced he'll show up. But go ahead.
Well, what takes so long? The contempt of court. What could possibly take these people in Washington so long? He refused a subpoena, and why is it taking months for them to issue a contempt of court?
And he's the president's son. They're saying that they'll arrest him if he doesn't show up. You're not going to arrest me. No.
Okay, we know the guy didn't show up. He refused a subpoena.
Right.
He went on television and he had that big ridiculous speech. How long does it take for you to say contempt and arrest him? Put him in jail, just like they did Steve Bannon, just like they did Peter Navarro, just like they did all the other people that defied the subpoenas. Put him in jail. What is this taking you so long to get this indictment? Congress, they make me sick, kind of dragging their feet, the whole thing. It's the same thing with the impeachment inquiry. Get on with it. Get it done.
Right.
What's taking you so long?
And
the election's going to be over before you guys get your show on the road.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's interesting stuff. Women who are not pregnant are stockpiling abortion pills, according to a new study published in JAMA Internal Medicine. The practice of requesting a prescription for abortion pills without being pregnant is called advanced provision. Such requests spiked during 2 recent periods, including after May 2nd, 2022, which was the leak of the Supreme Court's draft decision in Dobbs versus Jackson, Dobbs versus Jackson, and after conflicting rulings in April 2023 about the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's approval of mifepristone, the first drug used in a 2-drug medication abortion, Mother Jones reported of the study. What do we think about all this?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. These people think that, their abortion rights under attack. They won't have access to it. They're going to ban these drugs. And some states have. State of Florida is banning these drugs. But, doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. We were talking about financials earlier, and these politicians, lawmakers disclosed up to $1 billion with a B in financial transactions in 2023. Congressional lawmakers from both sides of the aisle disclosed $1 billion with a B worth of financial transactions in 2023. A report by Unusual Whales found Tuesday, and estimated based on the maximum disclosed amounts. The staggering volume raises concerns that many members of Congress trade stocks based on the information unavailable to the public. Members of Congress traded fewer stocks than last year due to House members selling stocks more than buying them, the report found. Both Democrats and Republicans still beat the market. Democrats even topped the S&P 500, the report said. Beating the S&P 500 is very difficult for stock traders due to the challenge of regularly identifying stocks that will gain more than the S&P. Democrats beat the index by 7 points, 31% up. Republicans fell short by 6 points, but were 18% up. Your thoughts?
Wow. Yeah, it's very difficult for anybody to beat the market, as they say. Very few investment firms even. Everybody likes to talk about, and you get all these guys in this fund and that fund, and he's ahead of this. And I see the guys on CNBC, and none of them are beating the market. None of them are beating it. And these guys are professionals. They are they've got teams of analysts who comb through 10Ks and 4Qs, all these reports, and they look and they dig into the notes page. They say, yeah, this guy's overvalued, this guy's undervalued. People, that's their livelihood, these and people in the world of finance. And here's some Joe dipshit politician can beat the market by 25%. I'm sorry. I just not buying it. Nancy Pelosi's
she's amazing. She's the best trader of all time, dude. She's the best. Talk about the greatest.
Her stock picker is not some, not some anomaly, Okay, well, so her stock picker's an anomaly, and McConnell's stock picker's an anomaly, and Nadler's is an anomaly, and George. On down the line, like all 525 senators and congressmen have stock pickers who are the anomaly. When you've got entire firms that can't beat the market. It's almost hilarious.
It's funny stuff. Yeah, it's all there. It's all in front of us. It's all visible what they're doing, and nothing ever gets done about it. Nobody pays a price. Nobody goes to jail. Sometimes we see people get, pay fines once in a while, but I'll tell you.
It's me one thing if these people, I look at Republicans who are about, you know, government taking less of your money and wanting to keep the people to keep their money. It's one thing for them to make money this way because they're not preaching a message that's completely hypocritical to the life they live. Democrats are such rank, egregious, disgusting hypocrites, evil to the point where they're evil. They're the ones running around saying, talking about equality, diversity, equity, inclusion. Where's the DEI in that with your inside information? How come I can't be included in the multi-billion-dollar stock pick frenzy that you guys all have access to? Why can't I be part of that? So they're preaching this message just completely contrary to the life they live. Look at the Joe Bidens, pay your fair share. This scum of the earth, him and his son, have evaded taxes for decades. Right. What bothers me is, Republicans Republicans do it okay because they're not going around telling me I need to pay my fair share and I need to be in DEI. We need to be able to, hold people accountable. They're not saying that, in the world of finance. They're saying work hard, keep your money. It's the Democrats. And they're the ones that I have the real problem with. And not that it makes it right for Republicans to use inside information to make money, but it just becomes so much more egregious when you've got Democrats running around telling us, how we, need to live our lives and condemning those who do what they've been doing for years.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it's a lot of do as I say, not as I do with these.
Exactly.
People.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah. There's a new report. And I can't even believe we're talking about this. I can't even believe they even have to put a law in place. New Hampshire Republicans seek to ban illegal aliens from driving in state. This shouldn't even be happening in the first place. But let me read this. Republican legislators in New Hampshire are hoping to pass legislation that would invalidate driver's licenses issued to illegal aliens in other states, including neighboring Massachusetts. Yeah, I remember Massachusetts announced a while back that they were giving driver's licenses to illegal aliens. 8 Republican state senators and 2 state representatives have issued legislation that would ensure illegal aliens, even if they have driver's licenses from other states, are not eligible to drive in New Hampshire. The legislation reads, any person who holds a driver's license that is of a class of licenses issued by another state exclusively to undocumented immigrants who are unable to prove lawful presence in the United States when the licenses are issued, the driver's license or other permit to authorize the holder. So blah, blah. Yeah, so you get it. I mean, what we're dealing with right here is something that is going on in a lot of other states. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just getting us just stepping them closer to being able to go in and vote, and register to vote.
Yeah. Yeah. California. Yeah. It's a big thing here, man. It's a big thing in California. They've got driver's licenses. A lot of them are uninsured. You said the same thing is going on in Florida. A lot of them are uninsured. A lot of them are driving around not safe.
No, not at all.
I don't know how that gets fixed. I mean, there's too much damage in that area. I mean, I feel like these Democrats have gotten their way and have really advanced this agenda. And Republicans don't do enough to stop stuff like this. I mean, there are even red states that are allowing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have them in Texas, don't they?
They, what? The
driver's licenses
for illegals?
I would imagine they do.
I don't think so. Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Are they in Florida?
No, I don't think so. It's hard to say.
Because there's a lot of Cubans in Florida, man. They're that's most of the population, right?
Yeah, but they're not illegal.
True. That's true.
Oh, let's see. I need to see. Can illegals get driver's license? Yeah. No, I don't think we have it in Florida. Pretty sure.
Interesting.
I'm pretty sure DeSantis is too hardcore on that. Man, I'm telling you, I'm kind of breezing through some of the headlines on this tranny killer, and nobody. They said, one report says he was bullied, and it seems that DeSantis is the only one. DeSantis came out and said he was hyped up on trans ideology. So
And
apparently
SSRIs, he was on SSRIs, I believe,
yeah,
which
yeah,
are a recipe for disaster. That's just
right,
that's a bad road to go down. And these doctors give them out like candy, and you've got the suicide rates at the all-time
but they're
high.
talking. But the only thing they report, he was bullied. In other words,
Right.
justifying his murder.
Right.
Yeah, but and they just cannot simply want. I mean, listen, you've got. I don't know how many kids now are involved in this trans, and their parents are allowing them. This is a serious issue. That if they, and we know. I mean, look, you and I know beyond any reasonable doubt, beyond a shadow of doubt, that these drugs are extremely harmful psychologically and
Right.
physiologically. But when you've got people that are killing, murdering people, and this is the second time we've happened, and it's been on the national stage, the children at the Christian school, it warrants serious like investigation into what these drugs are doing.
Right.
And yet, no, they're just going to ignore it because it's not about, they say blank is not about blank. It is always about fundamental. This is not about public safety. This is not about peaceful coexistence and acceptance. This is because if it was, we would put an immediate stop and we would be banishing these drugs right now and stopping them immediately until we find out what the hell they're doing to children. And it wouldn't take us very long, objectively, to realize, to come to the conclusion that they're extremely dangerous. But we won't even get there because it's not about that. It's not about public safety. It's not about, because their narrative is, and I listened to this idiot that the parent that said, these drugs saved my child's life because if I wouldn't have done it, my child would have killed himself. Well, talk to me in 10 years.
Right.
When your child is so depressed and confused that he does kill himself. So all just utter lies and spin. And okay, maybe you're one person, you're one kid. You're telling your 13-year-old, you're capitulating your 13-year-old. Look, if your 13-year-old wants to kill themselves for whatever reason, you better look at yourself in the mirror. And I'm fairly certain, and I would place all my money on the fact that you are the problem. You're the problem. That you didn't raise your child right. But, again, I digress. It's never about the public safety, the peaceful coexistence, acceptance. It's always about change, fundamental change. And these people ought to realize that this is a demonic, satanic movement. That's what Marxism is. It's about sowing confusion and chaos, and that's exactly what's happening. Men, women are men, boys, men can breastfeed. It's all crazy nonsense. It's just insanity.
Right. And I will say this about SSRIs is they lead a lot of people to suicide. They lead a lot of people into committing violent acts, horrible side effects, and it doesn't even cure your depression. It only gives you a little amount of juice, and then you need to keep taking it and recharging. I think what I'm referring to is like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's serotonin that these SSRIs provide, right?
Right.
It's only giving you a little serotonin, just enough so when it wears off, you need more. It's not doing anything beneficial to you long term, except making your problems worse because it masks the problem and it makes you rely on this pill every couple hours or once a day. And if you go without it because you're so reliant on it, you're fucking miserable. This is a dangerous part of the big pharma game. Very dangerous.
Of course, it's big pharma, but they don't give it. It's big billions. It's big money. So of course, and that's so much. That's like every drug out there. When it comes to depression, you really got to get to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is it's not only environmental, but it's spiritual. So when you really get to the root of the problem, and you look at the people's the upbringing and the environment that they're in, whether it was some kind of abuse or neglect, and you really start ministering to the person's spiritual needs and opening their mind up into, dealing with how they've been traumatized as a child or victimized as a child, whether it's through physical abuse or sexual abuse or verbal abuse or what have you, even neglect. You have to meet them, but all this doesn't matter. It's just like giving a kid who's rambunctious and full of energy in first grade ADHD medicines.
Right.
Listen, part of it also is this is life, man. This is life. But between the demonic influence of social media on teens, everything is supposed to be perfect. We're all supposed to be good looking and popular, and everybody's supposed to love us. That ain't the real world. Some people are fat, some people are skinny, some people are tall, some people are short. Some girls are ugly, some girls are pretty. That's the reality. But you have to be comfortable with yourself on the inside, because if you expect what social media, if you're looking to really be the manifestation of what social media tells you, you're of course going to be depressed and in despair. And so got to stop listening to what society and what the magazines and what Hollywood is telling you you're supposed to be, and start looking inside. But you know what? In your spirit, when you're empty inside, you're dead and cold. Your spirit is empty. What is there to look at in there? It's an empty cavern. It's a dark cave of nothingness. But when that cave is filled with the spirit, you have this sense of confidence and contentment, and you don't get depressed, and you don't need selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. You don't need that crap to change the way you think. All it does is mask your problems. Your problem is internal, and it certainly begins with filling your spiritual void. But you get a kid, he runs around too much. Well, that's what damn little kids do. They run around a lot. I want my kid to be active. Right. I don't want to be a fat, lazy tub of goo who sits in the corner and just stares at the teacher like a zombie. Right. I want him to be active. But we're telling them, and Big Pharma is feeding all of these lies and telling us, how you have to be your kid. And it's extremely dangerous. And really, they're racing America down a path of destruction by really destroying the psychology and the psyche of the future of the children who represent the future.
Yeah, I'll tell you the three things that can change a person's life and really, just completely anything they're dealing with, if they identify the certain things that they're deficient in and they take vitamins for it, exercise, proper
right.
diet.
Absolutely.
But all these doctors constantly, when people come in for problems,
pushing the drugs.
Okay, here's a pill. Here's a pill. Oh, you're having that problem? Here's a pill. There's no cognitive, there's, alternative or solution. There's no talking to somebody about how they can improve their diet. There's no talking about what vitamins to take. If somebody wants to take that route, they have to do their own research. If you want to go to a doctor, what you're going to be told is here's pills. And look at how majority of the population, I think at this point, I think it is majority, I could be wrong, but are on some sort of pharmaceutical to combat their issue. And it's at record highs at this point after the pandemic, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, some drugs are necessary for people. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's
a physical scenario, if it's something that's physically wrong with you, but I think anything mental can be
absolutely
proper vitamins,
absolutely.
Exercise, dieting. If people need therapy to talk about their problems, that's okay. I mean, there's ways.
No, I agree. But when it comes to children, very, very, very few children need drugs. Right. I mean, unless you're born with certain deficiencies, kids are born with type 1 diabetes. Okay, yeah, there are things that but the vast majority of the drugs that kids are taking, certainly 99% of these, the serotonin or the ADHD, all these hyperactivity drugs, completely unnecessary. And parents are fed the lie. But you know what? Yeah, 40 years ago, you had idiots having children. Okay. And they produced idiots. And then those idiots had children, and they're getting dumber and dumber and dumber. And so now we're all these generations. I mean, the parents of these children, I mean, think about it. Think about what kind of mother and or father that would listen to their 6-year-old, 7-year-old child telling them that they're a girl. And think about the kind of stupidity that is in that parent's mind. And it didn't just happen overnight. It just wake up that stupid. They've been stupid, and probably their parents were ignorant. But again, it all goes back to this. They have no God. They have no sense of faith. Life is the here and now, and that's it. They are their own moral arbiters and moral lawgivers. So is it any surprise that they would allow themselves to be manipulated by their 6-year-old? It's insanity. It's just horrific parenting. That's when you look at the Asian community and you look at the way they raise their children, and you wonder why Asians are so stinking hardworking and smart, because their parents don't tolerate anything less, and they don't capitulate, and they don't revolve their entire world and make that little kid the center of their universe. And that's why they've been really leaps and bounds. Once they got off the opium of the early 1900s, they really started making a turn in their society. But culturally, it's very different. And in the American culture, the way parents coddle and make their children the center of the universe, it's hugely devastating. It's not only devastating to them, it's devastating to the community and the country as a whole.
Isn't that fascinating how we have the most slobs, we have the most dysfunction, we have the most degenerates? You go to pretty much most of these other countries, and these people are well behaved, they believe in God, they have families, they eat well, and they don't consume the type of propaganda that we consume. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, it just feels like, we're the most dumbed down.
Because we lack discipline in America, and discipline on every single level.
Entitlement too is one of the biggest problems.
Right. We lack discipline in how somebody handles their finances. There's no discipline. When corporations don't have to be fiscally responsible because there's always some government bailout, you're not going to have discipline. When you take a child, if you don't discipline your child is going to grow up and just be defiant and law breaking, and going to be a horrible, horrible citizen. You have to discipline your child. But on every layer of society, from the home to local businesses to communities to politicians to Washington, every single layer of society, there is a complete, utter lack of discipline. We don't teach it. We don't instill it. We don't require it. So, of course, now we have this, it's just an utter chaotic society. There's just no discipline. And there's no discipline because it's not enforced. It's not required. There's a consequence if your kid misbehaves. There's no consequence to his misbehavior, he's going to keep misbehaving and it's going to get worse. And we do that on a social level, whether it's stealing, allowing, you start allowing people to jump the turnstiles in the subways. Eventually, they're going to start mugging the people down there. And when you don't do anything of that, but eventually you're going to start killing the people down there. And eventually they're going to start doing it down there. They're going to start doing it up topside in the stores. So you see, when you don't have any discipline enforcement, you just get worse and worse and worse, and leading to the social chaos that we have today. It's really sad, because it's not like we don't know what to do. Well, what do we do? How do we solve this issue? We know how to solve it. It's a lack of will. We have a lack of will to do it. And that's really the sad part about it.
Right. No, I agree. And we were just talking about religion and God, and I got some news coming out of Senator Romney's home state of Utah. Utah is no longer the majority Mormon, according to according to a new paper published this month in the Journal of Religion and Demography Estimates.
Well, who is? I saw that article, but I didn't see who is?
Let's see here. Wow, it says right here, since its inception, most of Utah's residents have been members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now less than half, 42%, identify as members.
So what they're saying is it's just a smaller percentage. It's no longer majority.
I'm reading if there's another religion that is taken up.
Yeah, I think what it was saying is the percentage of people that are Mormon there is decreasing. It's no longer the largest religion in Utah. Is that what the point of the article was?
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Because I don't think there's another state that has more Mormons in it.
Right. Like I'm reading right here. Do you think it has to do with people maybe just not being as committed to the faith anymore? Do you think that's
it's not just Mormonism. I mean, think about it. Christianity, as every religion, I mean, with the exception of Islam, and you know why? Because those people breed like rabbits. I mean, the average Islamic family has like over 8.1, I think is the average Muslim family. So they're breeding like fire. So, but religions of the world, the Catholic religion, Christianity, and the Protestant faith, Mormonism, they're all decreasing, because we just are losing our sense of faith, certainly in America. So all religions, I think, with the exception of Islam, are shrinking worldwide, certainly in the nation. It's not just Mormonism. It's not like people are converting from Mormons to Protestantism or Catholic, or anything. They just stop believing. I mean, that's really the danger in this country in the future. We're just becoming a godless society. And, it just doesn't bode well because, like I said, our faith is where we get our virtue, our sense of virtue. And our sense of virtue is the kind of righteous restriction on that freedom requires. Otherwise, I'm free to do whatever I want. I could say what I want. I could do it because I'm free. First Amendment, I could say. Virtuous people don't, shout four-letter expletives, in the face of some, president, and hide behind the Second Amendment or First Amendment. Yeah, you might have that free, but a virtuous person just doesn't do that. Just because I can, Apostle Paul said it perfectly. He said, all things are lawful, but not all things are edifying. In other words, it might be legal to do, but does it edify? Does it make things better? Should you do it? Just because it's legal doesn't necessarily mean you should do it. Virtue is that righteous restraint that keeps freedom from turning into anarchy. And people don't realize that. And where do you get virtue? You get it from faith. I've never met somebody who doesn't believe in any God or life hereafter that is a virtuous person. Oh, you got that baby in your belly in the 9th month, rip it out. There's no problem, abortion. There's no afterlife anyway. Just rip it out. So, I mean, again, going back to the tenets, the fundamental essentials in a functioning society, the social trinity, freedom, virtue, and faith. And we don't have any of it anymore.
Yeah, and the cashless bail situation. I want to transition real quick with the Democrats. Their policy in that area is just a disaster, and we all know they're trying to put this forth. They're promoting this left and right. Anyways, a Chicago man is making a name for himself thanks to being arrested more than anyone else during the first month of cashless bail, a system that Illinois residents are deeply concerned about. CWB Chicago reported Thursday that juvenile Coronel was recently freed from jail, but was rearrested 3 additional times over a 5-day span. The outlet highlighted the fact the man was freed every time. Coronel was arrested 5 times within the first month of cashless bail's debut on September 18th. He kept getting out, the report said, noting one of those cases involved him allegedly hitting 2 women on their buttocks, and another where he was accused of jumping on the hood of a woman's car and punching her window while she was parked at a red light. Wow. Following several other instances, Judge William Fahey ordered officials to detain the suspect for violating pretrial release conditions. The CWB Chicago report continued. In the end, prosecutors dropped all of the cases except for the battery charges he received for slapping the woman on her ass. Judge Donald Panaris gave him 120 days for that on November 13th, and after getting credit for good behavior, Coronel was released earlier this month. The outlet said that he has 3 cases that are currently pending. One involves the suspect being charged with battery after allegedly hitting a 14-year-old boy with a rake. The man left the police station a few hours after the incident happened. He was apparently arrested again Tuesday after going into a McDonald's restaurant and throwing trays on the floor and a bottle at the restaurant's manager. Wow. Very interesting.
Again, it goes back to what I just said. There's no discipline. No, the kid's never been disciplined. His parents never disciplined, if he even knows who they are. The school system never disciplined him. Obviously, the justice system and the legal system hasn't disciplined him. So this is what happens when you're not held accountable for your actions. You're destined to repeat them and for them to get worse. And he's a young criminal now. He'll grow up to be a more sophisticated and more dangerous criminal 10, 20 years from now.
Right. And we were talking about DEI earlier while we're on this whole political correctness bullshit. Tech giants, including Mark Zuckerberg's Meta and Google, have slashed their funding of diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI programs in 2023 by up to 90% as the tech sector faces a tightening budget under the Biden economy. Thoughts?
Well, of course, it's like anything, in the airline industry, when the money starts getting tight, you take the low hanging fruit. That's why you used to get those nice meals. Remember on airplanes, you used to get a nice hot meal. I mean, those are the first things to go. Now you're lucky to get a bag of crackers and a cup of Coke. Right. Look, when it comes to companies right now that are hurting, I mean, what's the first thing going to go? I mean, first of all, DEI brings nothing. In spite, regardless of what Mark Cuban, the idiot, Mark Clueless thinks, DEI does nothing for a company. These DEI is really a push for quotas. It doesn't do anything. The only reason why these people have these DEI teams is to kind of check that box to get their ESG score high and to make it look like they're actually doing something to foster, more diversity, equity, and inclusion. But it's all nonsense. They know it produces nothing. If anything, just look at Harvard University. Look at that DEI appointment. Look what she did. Disastrous. Absolutely disastrous. And you know why they fired her? Money. They're losing billions of dollars in their endowment. That's why they canned her. She was incompetent to begin with. The only reason why she got that job, that's why I listen to Cuban. He says, anybody thinks DEI is about quotas is naive. It's not about that. It's about opening the pool of people. When you get more pool, you get better selections. That's just all not. You're drinking the Kool-Aid. You're falling for the diversion. DEI has a nice talk, fancy wrapping paper and bows, but inside is purely quotas and putting people in positions that they would never otherwise get and using color and race to get them there. That's what the President Gay was at Harvard. And she should have never been there in the first place. And then you realize, look, you give these people long enough and enough rope, they'll hang themselves. And she hanged herself in front of Congress, and she hanged herself in front of the whole community and the alumni that said, we don't going to get our money. And so they're going to lose millions of dollars. And if you saw Harvard, I think their pre-applications were down almost 25%. So it was going to weigh on them. So they canned her. And, companies are all doing the same. DEI is doing nothing for their bottom line. As a matter of fact, it's hurting their bottom line. Why are we paying all these fools to do nothing but hurt our bottom? That's like, giving the enemy the bullet to shoot you and paying for the bullet to boot. Here, kill me, shoot me. Let me buy the bullets for you too. Why should these companies be doing that? So it's right for them to get rid of these teams. And these whole organizations within their organization, because it's a waste of money and it's actually doing them more harm than it does them any good in terms of growing their business and making their business better. Yeah. Look, it's organic. If you're going to hire the best, companies don't just go out there and say, you know what, you're the best, smartest guy, but you're black. I'm not. I mean, those days are long gone. I don't like you. You're black. Well, but you're the smartest. You're Ben Carson, and you got an operation over here to separate these two conjoined twins. I don't like you, Ben. You're black. I'm going to get this schmuck white guy who's never done this operation. I'm going to let him do it. Look, nobody does that. Those days are long gone. Right. We organically bring the very best in. We don't care what you look like. Right. Let companies do that on their own. Don't force DEI down their throat just to boost an ESG score.
Right. No, I agree. Very well said. What are we going to do? We got a few minutes left. What are we going to do about Bob Menendez? He's now accused, him and his wife, accepting bribes from the Qatari royal family. I mean, this scandals never end with this fucking little midget.
This guy.
And his ugly fucking wife. She's a cunt. You hear her, she killed some dude in a car and she got off.
Yeah, she did. She was drunk, probably all pissed up on vodka martinis.
Right.
Skank. Again, this is all part of that whole dual justice system, one for them and one for us. These people are corrupt I mean, you just think about it. Look, I don't care who you are, what kind of business you're in. If you've got gold bars sewn into your jacket in your closet, there's something wrong in Denmark there. Something ain't right there. I don't care who you are. If you're the Pope and you had gold bars in your Pope garb, there's something wrong you're doing. I don't care who you are. People just don't have gold bars and cash stored like that unless they're corrupt. So he is. Everybody knows it. He should have been in jail years ago when they had him on charges. But hopefully his time will come. But I'll tell you, if they're going to give George Santos the boot before he ever goes to trial, they sure as hell should be giving this guy the boot.
I mean, will we see a resignation? Will we see jail time?
These people? Yeah, hardly ever.
I mean, he won't be forced to step down, will he?
They should. No, I don't think
it would have already happened. I feel like
no, they're never going to do that. So look, Democrats only do that to Republicans. They don't do it to themselves.
So Bob Menendez's political future. I mean, I don't know if he'll get reelected over this unless
no, he's done. I think he's done.
Yeah. I mean, we have surprisingly though, we have seen several politicians involved in corruption, and then they don't have a problem getting reelected. But other times, the voters vote them out. So it just really depends.
Yeah, I think politically he's done, but I don't think he's going to resign.
Yeah. We were just talking about DEI and the political correctness and how people, have these different hiring practices. London Council, the city council there, is demanding that private companies commit to LGBTQ plus agenda before hiring them. A leftist-controlled council, local government in London, has reportedly begun to require private companies demonstrate their commitment to LGBTQ plus equality if they wish to do business with the council. The Camden Council in central London is said to have introduced measures to ensure that all firms hired by the local government are on board with the increasingly radical LGBTQ plus agenda. According to the statement seen by the Telegraph, the Labour Party-run council has proclaimed that it will only work with businesses whose values align with our own and to use our position of power to positively influence. We are beginning to ask businesses to demonstrate their commitment to LGBTQ plus equality before we procure them, the council reportedly stated. Wow.
Yeah, big surprise there. Hey, I did see that Menendez he has filed for re-election in 20. His term expires in 25.
Are you noticing healthcare facilities around the country are kicking off the new year with masks? It's becoming this thing. There's a lot of reports.
Yeah. But you know what? There's where I love Ron DeSantis, because in the state of Florida, you cannot enforce any vax mandates, any mask mandates, none of these COVID mandates. It's against the law to try to enforce them. So the days of, you get out of my store, you're not wearing your mask, those days are gone. Those days are gone here in Florida.
This is the beginning of the lockdown. You don't think they're going to be?
I mean, they're going to try, but look, they can do that. It's not going to happen in red states. It's not going to happen in red states. Not going to allow it. Look, we've seen that clown show before. We know how that ends. It doesn't end well. So, the Gavin Newsoms and the Kathy Hochul's, they can do that. But I'll tell you what, the Ron DeSantis, they're not going to do that.
Right.
And the people of Florida are not going to allow it to happen. And we're done with that. I mean, how many times I walked into the drugstore here and had some skank loser run me down and demand that I put my mask on and threaten to call the police. That's never going to happen again. Call the police. Go ahead. Call the police.
Too funny. Monthly migrant encounters in December exceed 300,000 for the first time.
Well, actually, it's been 300,000 a number of times. We've had a couple of months.
Listen to this real quick. Let me hold on. Keep going though. What were you saying?
No, I mean, it was like 307,000. We've had a 304,000. I mean, we've had 300 plus.
Listen to this real quick. For the first time ever, migrant encounters along the southern border exceeded 300,000 in a single month, according to a report citing unofficial CBP sources. The report states December was the highest month in history for migrant encounters along the southwest border. U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials, including Border Patrol agents and CBP OFO officer, encountered 302,000 migrants along the southwest border in December, according to an official source speaking with Fox News on Tuesday. The reported encounters set a new single-month record for CBP encounters and marked the first time this number has exceeded the 300,000 migrant threshold.
Yeah, I saw that, but I also saw that we've had other months where we exceeded 300,000. So, yeah, I mean, whatever. Whether it's the first month, look, it's not the first month we've had 300,000. I guarantee you that. It continues to excel. It just doesn't make it better. It's just bad. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just bad. That we have 10,000 migrants a month is huge bad.
Right.
If we had 1,000 crossing illegally a month, that would be bad.
Right.
But I mean, look, the truth is by the time Biden finishes his first term, we'll have over 10 million. 10 million.
Right.
So
got about 5-10 minutes left. In regards to the Red Sea, Greg, have you been paying attention to what the scenario is there? What's the deal? Are we dealing with something that is extremely serious?
Sorry, say that again.
The Red Sea. There's a lot of talk about the Red Sea going on. A lot of countries with the Red Sea.
Yeah, because the Houthis are shooting arrows. Yeah.
Good Lord.
I mean, look, they're targeting ships, and look, these people they've got drones. They send drones over there. They know all the ships that are going in there. Look, they're getting all their intel from Iran, so
Yep.
they know what ships are going where and who they belong to. But it just shows you none of this would be happening. Like, say what you want about that, none of this would be happening with Donald Trump. He would not allow Iran to arm the Houthis and the Houthis attack the ships in the Red Sea. I mean, this has a global impact, because they're having to route all the way around South Africa now to get where they to get to Europe, to get into the Mediterranean. That's costing massive shipping cost increases. So look, you want to let Iran do whatever they want, and again, there's a reason why they do that. The Obama administration is pro-Iran. They don't want to do anything to upset Iran. Look, Valerie Jarrett, she's got Obama's ear, president of his foundation. They're not going to let anything get in the way of Iran and Iran building nuclear weapons and strength and influence in the region. Yeah.
It says right here, I want to transition, make sure we get everything in. Fidelity, according to Fidelity, and I don't know how much you buy into this. I mean, I don't know.
Hey, Roy, can we take a break for 1 minute?
Yeah, I'm gonna take. I'll go to commercial real quick. Everybody, stay with us. We will be right back. And we are back.
Sorry about that, Rory.
No worries,
knock
man.
at the door. Buying some old tires from me.
Oh, no worries, man. What are your thoughts on this whole Elon Musk thing? Do you think he has lost 71% of $44 billion value since the acquisition of Twitter? Do you think it's really that underwater?
Did they do the? I mean, the stock price.
Yeah, according to Fidelity.
Yeah, I saw the article, but was it based on the market cap? I mean, he's clearly losing money.
Elon Musk's X, formerly known as Twitter, is now valued at only $12 billion, just 14 months after the Tesla tycoon acquired the social media platform for $44 billion, according to numbers released by Fidelity Investments. I mean, I don't know if.
I mean, the numbers.
A lot of these companies do these.
Look, it's very simple. You just take the price per share. You take the price per share times the amount of shares outstanding. That comes to 12 billion. Well, he paid 44 billion, so he lost a bunch of money. It was never worth 44 billion in the first place. So I can't say that I necessarily fully agree with that. Yes, he paid 44 billion. It was never worth 44 billion. So he should have paid 20 billion. So I would say, it should be down, 30%, right, because he should only pay 20 billion for it. But hey, he paid 44 billion, and
we were talking about immigration a little bit ago, and we have a few minutes left. Germany is dealing with a disaster. I mean, we're going to be Germany if we're not careful. We kind of already are, but over 7,000 women in Germany have been raped or sexually assaulted by asylum-seeking migrants since 2015. Since opening the gates to unfettered mass migration in 2015, at least 7,000 women have been raped or sexually assaulted in Germany by alleged asylum-seeking illegal migrants.
Of course.
An analysis.
They make the rapists and the drug dealers. I mean, like Trump said.
Yeah. I mean,
you got to understand, too, these people that come from the Middle East are they're sexually repressed. They just are. Look, I don't know. I got to go back to the Elon Musk thing because the market cap is much higher than what they're saying. I mean, I don't know what that value is because the market cap is about 40 billion, a little over 40 billion, $41 billion. I don't know why they say that. There is a lot of attacks on Elon Musk, and they just want to make him look like a failure because they hate him. So, I don't know what they're analyzing, if they're taking, his revenues and what it should be, because a lot of people will say something's overvalued or undervalued. But I mean, based on market cap, I know the guy paid $44 billion for the company, and today has a market cap of $41 billion. I mean, that isn't that's not a 70% loss.
True. Very true.
Anyway, look, we keep letting these people in our country. Middle Eastern people are sexually repressed people. That's just a fact. They're sexually repressed people. Oh, yeah. And I mean, just look at the sexual activity. When, not that this is right or wrong, but the average person in like a Middle Eastern, I think 23 years old is the average girl age when she starts first time she has sex. So these people are very repressed. And I mean, that's why child rape is so prevalent in countries like Afghanistan, the Middle East. They'll have sex with little boys because the women are so, kind of protected. Can't touch a woman unless she's married. She won't allow you to touch her because if she does, she can get killed because, for under Muslim law, she can get killed. So it's a very intense drive, the sex drive. And so they come into these countries and they see women like the European women, they're not that they're nasty burqa covered women that they're used to, and they can't handle themselves.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. And speaking of immigration, Gavin Newsom is offering health insurance to the world's migrants in 2024 if they can get to California. Listen to this.
100,000.
Beginning January 1st, 2024, illegal aliens residing in California will become eligible for taxpayer-funded health insurance, the first state in the nation to enact such a policy. In June of this year, Newsom touted the budget agreement that will make California the first state in the United States to offer health insurance subsidized by taxpayers to the state's estimated 4.4 million illegal aliens, so long as they are low income. Starting in the new year, illegal aliens in California will qualify for Medi-Cal, which is
because high income people are coming across the southern border. So
jeez. Wow.
It's just it is the contempt for their own people under this big disgusting lie that I'm a virtuous person, I want to help everybody. No, you hate your own people. That's really what you are. You hate your own people. It's a counter tribalist mentality. You're not compassionate. There's nothing compassionate about starving and destroying the livelihood of your own people to help strangers who are not coming here with good intentions. Right. That's what evil people do. That's what treasonous people do. That's not what compassionate, virtuous people do. All right. And we used to hang people like that.
And it says right here, Joe Biden's Department of Homeland Security confirms illegal aliens freed into the U.S. will get photo ID cards in 2024, just in time for the election. President Joe Biden's Department of Homeland Security, DHS, has confirmed that the agency is developing a program that will provide border crossers and illegal aliens released into the United States with photo ID cards. For more than a year, Breitbart News has chronicled how DHS is planning to roll out a pilot program that will give border crossers and illegal aliens photo ID cards similar to a driver's license upon their release into the United States interior from the southern border. Now, DHS officials are seemingly confirming their plan to issue photo IDs to such border crossers and illegal aliens. Buried in the Immigration and Custom Enforcement's annual report, officials confirm that they are planning to begin issuing the photo ID cards to border crossers and illegal aliens sometime this fiscal year.
Yeah, I mean,
here we are.
It's just the beginning of the end of this country.
Here we are, man. I mean, we see what's going on in Europe. I mean, it's with their flood of illegal immigration. We're not too far off, man. We're not too far off.
No, we're for sure not.
Jesus, what a time to be alive. Anything else before we take off today?
Yeah, I think we've depressed the audience enough for one day.
And you were mentioning about Menendez. He's already announced he's re-elected.
Yeah, he's running for, which doesn't really surprise me. I mean, these people have no conscience whatsoever. And, I think, like I've always said, and that's been my problem with Matt Gaetz here. This is a guy, when he was a child, he was allowed to get away with murder, essentially. He's never been held accountable. So when you do that, you're destined to repeat your missteps over and over again till you get to a point where you feel invincible and you're above the law. And that's exactly what these people are. They've done it for years. They don't really see the walls closing in on them. Because they've been doing, and I'll tell you, the only reason why, if you remember back, remember Stuart Smalley, the senator from Minnesota, used to be on Saturday Night Live. Wait, what the heck was his name? He played Stuart Smalley on Saturday Night Live. You even know who I'm talking about? He resigned because he was groping that woman.
Oh, Al Franken.
Yeah, Al Franken. Al Franken. So Al Franken, you remember some girl claimed he groped her, and he resigned. Now, why did he regretted it? I'll tell you what, a couple of years later, that guy regretted it, and he talks about how he should have never resigned. And the only reason why he's the only Democrat I know of all of them that resigned. Democrats don't resign. The only reason why he resigned is because he hadn't been in Washington long enough and been corrupted enough to have this aura of invincibility. So he actually felt like the walls were closing in on him and he couldn't handle the pressure. But I'll tell you, if he'd have been a few more years, maybe another decade in Washington, that guy he would have laughed at the notion of resigning. So right. Democrats never resign, with that rare exception, because he wasn't in Washington enough to feel invincible and feel that the walls are closing in. Menendez doesn't. I honestly think that this guy, who is obviously some kind of narcissist, sycophant, I don't think he realizes that the walls are closing and this guy could and should be in jail. I mean, doesn't surprise me.
Right. No, I agree. And to conclude tonight, I want to mention this. This is surprising. China's premier automaker, BYD, financially backed by the Chinese Communist Party, is now the world's biggest seller of electric vehicles, beating out United States-based Tesla for the crown.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, they're keeping Teslas down, but yeah. Well, we got lots to discuss as the week coming up. I think some new things are going to happen, and we're going to be, I think, talk about the big game, the big CFP game on Monday. So,
who do you got? Well, I think Washington's going to win it all.
I hope not. I want Michigan to win. Michigan reminds me of old school when I was growing up. I mean, that's 1980s college football, and cold rain. So I'm rooting for Michigan.
It's going to be fun, man. This game's going to be a blast. I feel like this is going to be one of the best games in years. It's going to come down to the wire.
So Tuesday is that time again.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Tuesday, there's going to be so much to discuss, so much to establish. It'll be headline after headline, as usual. Everybody, it's been a fantastic show. Another episode of Daily S&M in the books, our first show of 2024. I want to thank you. We will see you all very soon. Until next time, I'm Rory Sauter. God bless. Much love. Have a fantastic weekend. Cheers, everybody.